The town of Red Willow slept early, the way frontier towns always did, as if darkness itself carried judgment. Lanterns dimmed behind dusty windows. Saloon laughter faded into memory, and the wind moved through the wooden buildings like a whisper of secrets long buried. Sheriff Thomas Hale believed in order, in lines drawn clearly between right and wrong, and his badge shone like a promise to a town that feared chaos more than hunger. His daughter, Eleanor Hale, had been raised beneath that promise, taught that justice was clean, that outlaws were monsters, and that mercy was a weakness men could not afford. Yet even as she walked home that night, skirts brushing against the dirt road, Eleanor felt something restless stirring in her chest, an unease she could not name, as if the world she knew was beginning to crack. Eleanor was not like the other women of Red Willow. She read books her father confiscated from travelers, stories of distant places and people who chose their own paths. She listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, her voice carried a calm strength that unsettled men twice her age. The townsfolk respected her, some admired her, others feared her quiet intelligence. To them, she was the sheriff's daughter, safe, untouchable, wrapped in the law itself. But Eleanor felt trapped by that title. Every smile she offered carried expectation. Every step she took was watched, and every future imagined for her had already been decided by someone else. Across the river, beyond the cottonwoods and the winding trail most decent folk avoided, lived a different kind of man. His name was Lucas Crow, though bounty posters shortened him to Crow, as if stripping. Him of his humanity made the price, on his head easier to collect. He was called an outlaw, a thief, a killer, yet the truth, like most truths, was buried beneath fear and rumor. Lucas had learned early that survival in the West required hard choices. He stole when he had to, fought when cornered, and ran when mercy was denied. He trusted no one, especially not the law, which had taken more from him than it had ever protected. That night, Lucas crouched by the riverbank, washing blood from his knuckles. It wasn't his blood. It never was. The water ran cold, moonlight dancing across its surface like a lie pretending to be beautiful. He had crossed paths with men who wore justice like a disguise, men who smiled while they cheated farmers and broke promises. Lucas had interfered, as he always did, and violence followed like a shadow. He hated it, but the West didn't reward gentle men. He leaned back against a tree, breath steady, eyes scanning the darkness. He knew Sheriff Hale's patrol routes by heart. Red Willow was a cage, and he had learned every bar. Eleanor should not have been there. She knew that. Her father had warned her countless times about the river at night, about the kind of men who lingered there, about danger dressed in charm. Yet something pulled her beyond the edge of town, past the familiar and into the unknown. Perhaps it was the argument she'd had with her father earlier that evening, his voice sharp as he spoke of duty and obedience, of the life she would lead once she married a good man, or perhaps it was the loneliness she carried like a hidden wound. Whatever the reason, Eleanor found herself standing at the river's edge, moonlight silvering her dark hair, heart pounding as if it recognized something before her mind did. Lucas heard her before he saw her. The soft crunch of boots on gravel, hesitant, unsure. His hand went instinctively to his gun, body tense, ready to vanish into the trees. Then he saw her silhouette, framed by moonlight, and froze. She wasn't armed. She wasn't searching. She looked lost. The river seemed to hold its breath as they stared at one another. Two souls divided by law and fate, standing on the same fragile ground. "You shouldn't be here," Lucas said finally, his voice low, roughened by years of dust and silence. Eleanor's heart leapt into her throat, but she did not run. She had been taught not to fear words, only intentions. "Neither should you," she replied, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. He studied her face, searching for recognition, for accusation. Then realization dawned, heavy and dangerous. "You're Hale's daughter." She stiffened. "And you're the outlaw," she said, the word tasting bitter. "Lucas Crow." The air between them thickened. This was how men died, recognized, named, reduced to a bounty. Lucas could have disappeared then, slipped into the darkness and left her trembling by the river. But something in her eyes stopped him. There was no hatred there, no fear, only curiosity and something deeper, something that mirrored his own exhaustion. "I won't hurt you," he said quietly. Eleanor swallowed. "I believe you." The river whispered on, indifferent to the fragile truce forming beside it. Eleanor felt the world she'd known slipping further away with every heartbeat. She should have turned back, should have run home and locked the door behind her. Instead, she sat on a smooth rock near the water, hands folded in her lap, as if this meeting had been written long before either of them knew it. "Everyone says you're a monster," she said softly. Lucas laughed, a short, humorless sound. "Everyone says a lot of things. They say you kill for pleasure. They say that so they don't have to ask why." Eleanor looked at him then, really looked, at the lines etched into his face by sun and hardship, at the weariness in his eyes that no criminal legend could explain. "Why do you do it?" she asked. "Why live like this?" He hesitated. No one had ever asked him that without a gun in their hand. "Because the law doesn't always protect the innocent," he said. "Sometimes it protects the powerful. And sometimes it just looks the other way." Her father's face flashed in her mind, stern and certain. She wanted to argue, raised in, but doubt crept in like a crack in glass. "My father believes in justice." "I don't doubt it," Lucas said. "But belief and truth don't always ride the same horse." The silence that followed was not empty. It was filled with everything they had never said aloud. The loneliness, the anger, the longing for something more than survival or duty. The river reflected the moon like a broken promise, and Eleanor felt tears sting her eyes, though she could not say why. "I don't belong anywhere," she admitted suddenly, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "Not really. I'm always the sheriff's daughter, never just me." Lucas understood that kind of invisibility too well. "Freedom's a lonely thing," he said. "But chains can be worse." A shout echoed faintly in the distance, a patrol. Time snapped back into motion, sharp and unforgiving. Lucas stepped away, instincts screaming at him to run. Eleanor stood as well, panic flaring. "If they find you—" "They won't," he said, though his gaze lingered on her face. "But you shouldn't come here again." She nodded, though something in her chest rebelled. "I won't," she lied. He turned, then paused. "Eleanor," he said, tasting her name like something sacred. "Tonight, let it stay between us." She watched him disappear into the trees, heart racing, soul burning. She knew nothing would ever be the same again. The river had heard their truths, and once spoken, they could not be taken back. As Eleanor walked home under a sky heavy with stars, she felt the first stirrings of a love that would challenge everything she had been taught. Somewhere beyond the law, beyond fear, two hearts had spoken, and the West would never forgive them for it. Days after the river felt unreal to Eleanor Hale, as though she were walking through a life that no longer belonged to her. Red Willow looked the same. Dusty streets, polite nods, familiar faces, but everything felt altered, as if a veil had been lifted and she alone could see the cracks beneath the town's order. At the breakfast table, her father spoke of rising outlaw activity near the river, of tracks found of men growing nervous. Eleanor kept her eyes on her plate, every word striking her like a hammer. She knew, with a certainty that frightened her, that the outlaw her father hunted was no longer a shadowy villain, but a man whose voice still echoed in her chest. Lucas Crow felt it too. He rode hard and fast through the open land, trying to outrun the memory of her eyes, the calm courage in her voice, the way she had looked at him not as an outlaw but as a man. He had survived ambushes, hunger, and betrayal. But this quiet pull toward the sheriff's daughter terrified him more than any gunfight. He told himself it had been a mistake, a dangerous coincidence. Yet every night he found himself drawn back to the river, as if fate itself waited there. They met again without planning it, as if the land had conspired, heart pounding with fear and anticipation, knowing that every step toward the river was a step away from the life chosen for her. Lucas emerged from the trees like a ghost, eyes dark with concern. He told her she was risking everything. She told him she already had. The space between them closed, not with touch, but with understanding. They spoke of dreams they had buried, of choices forced upon them, of a world that demanded obedience or exile. Each word bound them tighter, until the truth was undeniable. What they felt was no passing moment. It was a bond forged in honesty, rare and dangerous in a land built on lies. But the West does not allow such love to grow unchallenged. Sheriff Hale noticed the change in his daughter. The way her gaze wandered toward the horizon, the way she flinched at talk of executions and bounties. When a trusted deputy reported seeing a woman's footprints near the river alongside, Crow's tracks suspicion took root like poison. Hale's duty hardened his heart. He organized a full manhunt, swearing to bring the outlaw in dead or alive, unaware that every step closer to justice pulled him closer to tragedy. The night everything shattered came with gunfire and firelight. Lucas was ambushed near an abandoned barn, bullets tearing through the silence. He fought his way free, wounded but alive, driven by instinct toward the river, toward Eleanor. She was already there, breathless, having overheard her father's plans. When she saw blood soaking Lucas's shirt, something inside her broke. She tore fabric, pressed trembling hands to his wound, whispering his name like a prayer. In that moment, law and outlaw ceased to exist. There was only love, raw and desperate, clinging to life beneath a merciless sky. They had minutes at most. Voices carried through the trees. Lanterns flickered like approaching judgment. Lucas knew what had to be done. He told Eleanor to run, to return home, to forget him. She refused, tears streaking her face, declaring that a life without choice was no life at all. He kissed her then, not gently, not carefully, but with the force of everything they could never have. It was a farewell carved into memory. When Sheriff Hale emerged from the darkness, gun raised, the world seemed to stop. Eleanor stepped between them, screaming for him to stop, confessing everything. Hale saw the truth in her eyes and felt his world collapse. The outlaw was no monster. The daughter before him was no longer a child. Duty warred with love, tearing him apart. In the end, the West decided for them. A shot rang out. Whether from panic or fate, no one would ever know. Lucas fell into the river, carried away by its relentless current. Blood dissolving into moonlit water. They never found his body. Red Willow changed after that night. The manhunt ended. Sheriff Hale aged years in weeks, his badge heavier than ever. Eleanor left the town soon after, carrying grief and strength in equal measure. Some said she went east. Others claimed she lived near the river, waiting. And sometimes on quiet nights, a lone rider was seen watching from the trees, a scarred man with tired eyes, alive but forever bound to a love the West could not destroy. Because some stories don't end in graves or prisons. Some end in memory. Some end in freedom.